Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. Really excited about this video. We're going to take a deep dive into a 10.3 inch versus 11.5 inch barrel out to distance. We're also going to try out some new ammo from Phantom Defense. It's got a hybrid case. It's a higher pressure, higher velocity ammo. It's going to be really fun to see how that ammo performs versus your traditional, say, IMI MK262. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. What's the flow of the video? Now, if you're new to my channel, I know there's a ton of you that have just stopped by to check me out recently. I always move down to the 100-yard line to get a baseline of performance. And that's what we're going to do with each rifle. We'll shoot groups, take a look at the zero, and get velocity information so that we know what we're stretching out to distance. Then we'll move out, and we're going to shoot steel. I've got a full-size Ziptic and a 2/3 Ziptic that I'll set up downrange. And we're going to do a couple of different tests. One thing I want to test is just purely drop between each of the barrels. So we'll run the same ammo at the 400-ish yard line and check out what the drop difference is there. Then we'll move back to here, which is about 650 yards, and we will compare standard MK262 versus the high pressure, high velocity Phantom Defense 77 grain load. And finally, we'll push out to about 820 yards, where we will compare high pressure loads. Phantom Defense has sent me two different loads. They sent me a 77 grain Sierra Match King load, as well as a 69 grain TMK load. Really excited to try both of these out to distance and see how we can connect on steel. So these are very much fighting rifles. They're short barrels. They're meant for close engagements, but on my channel, you know I love to stretch things out to distance and see what I can do with shorter barrels. I'm really curious to see how that high pressure, high velocity ammo is going to actually perform downrange. And of course, throughout the video, we'll take a look at hit percent. Really quick, let's take a look at the gear we're going to run. So the first rifle will be my Defense Mk18, you see here. This rifle I've had a long time. I've featured on the channel before. Right now, it's actually on an LMT lower. That's Defender lower, I think it is. It's got a Geissele 2-stage trigger in it. I had this rifle on the channel previously, and many of you gave me grief about how poorly it shot. So over this past winter, I swapped out the barrel to a Centurion. I think it's a medium weight, chrome lined barrel. It's actually shooting way better than the old barrel did. Suppressor is going to be a Surefire. This is old school, I believe they call it the FA556, pre-SOCOM series. As you can see, the bipod is going to be the MDT Sky Pod. This is a single pull. And also check out these pod knobs. So one of my followers on Instagram sent this out to me, and I'll do a link in the description below to get you to these pod knobs. But basically on this MDT Sky Pod, gives you a really big surface area to hit with your thumb to actually fold those levels out, or to fold those legs out. Optics, let me give a shout out to Ally Munitions. They've been a long-time supporter of the channel, and they actually provided this Athlon 1-10. This is the Aries ETR. This optic, I've had it for quite a while now, but I figured it would make sense to put, say, an LPVO like this on these rifles to compare out to distance. Many of you might be running an optic setup just like this on your rifle, and you're curious how it's going to perform out to distance. It's going to be in a Reptilia mount. And then for leveling on this rifle, I have the SG Pulse. I love this thing. This is a sweet electronic level. They sent it out to me, I don't know, sometime on the back half of last year. And I really like how that thing performs, and you'll see it in quite a bit of my content. So that's going to be the 10.3 inch 5.56 rifle. Next up will be a very popular barrel length, which is 11.5 inches. So you think about the Mk18 with a 10.3, very short, very compact, very maneuverable. What I have right here is the Griffin Armament Mk2. This rifle is going to have an 11.5 inch barrel. Now currently, my lower's back at Griffin. Actually, they're swapping it out to the new 2-stage trigger, so I don't have the Griffin lower handy. I went ahead and slapped it onto my Knights Armament SBR lower. It's got the Knights 2-stage trigger in it. I can't wait to get the Griffin lower back and try out the new 2-stage trigger and some future content. Upper is going to be all Griffin Armament. It's going to be their barrel, again, 11.5 inch. Both of these are 7-twist barrels. And for a suppressor, I'm going to be running the Griffin Armament 762 HRT suppressor. Bipod will be the MDT double pull Sky Pod, so very similar bipod on both rifles. This one just extends out a bit further. Love these Sky Pods. They are very adjustable to get the height you need to take shots, either up, down angle. I find them quite stable, and I appreciate the support from MDT. If you're in the market for a solid bipod, check out MDT Sky Pods. For an optics package, we're going to stay with Griffin Armament. So this is going to be the Griffin Armament 1-10 LPVO. This is going to be a second focal plane optic versus the Athlon, which will be a first focal plane. So what you'll see in this one is it's going to be kind of a standard crosshair with some mil hash marks on it. So that'll be the 11.5-inch rifle that we're going to stretch out to distance. Now, ammo for the video. There's a couple of things going on here. The first is going to be just our baseline load. This will be IMI 77 grain MK262 ammo. This is loaded to 5.56 pressure. This is a very popular load. It's priced quite affordably, and I've shot a ton of it. So this is very much in line with maybe what the military is using out of their traditional 5.56 precision rifles. Nice shooting load, IMI 77. Now what I'm really excited about is this ammo right here from Phantom Defense. So Phantom Defense, they actually reached out to me and said, hey, we've got some high pressure ammo. We'd love to send it out to you. Can you try it? I said, of course I can. So the cool thing about this is, this ammo is the new, say, hybrid style case, and I'll do some close-up footage of this. But this case, from what I understand, is actually lighter than brass, and it can handle higher pressures. So higher pressures mean higher velocities. So what I'm expecting out of this happens to be the 77 grain SMK load. I'm expecting these to run faster, flatter, and have further distance. We'll see at the 100-yard line what that looks like exactly, but huge shout out to Phantom Defense. Cannot wait to see how this performs. They've also sent out a 69 grain TMK load, a little bit lighter bullet, higher BC. And at the end of the video, we're going to compare how the 69 grain shoots versus the 77 grain out at distance. I really feel like these new hybrid, I believe it's called NAS3, I believe that's the future. That high pressure, that's going to be pretty cool. And in this video, we're going to see exactly how it performs. Now I have a couple of theories in mind. The first theory, I believe, say you're shooting standard Mk262 out of an 11.5-inch barrel. I'm not sure what the velocity will be until we get to the 100-yard line, but I feel like you could actually match that performance, say with this 10.3-inch barrel, by running the high-pressure ammo. Now that's something I cannot wait to see. Can we actually push a 10.3-inch barrel above and beyond what you think it's capable of with the high-pressure ammo, and maybe even match what has been the baseline of performance of 11.5-inch barrel? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. How are the two barrels going to stack up with regards to accuracy, velocity, and ability to shoot and make impacts out at distance? I can't wait to hear from you. Now really quick, I want to ask for your support. If you enjoy this kind of content, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button, and make sure to check out my other content. I love putting out long-range content. I'm very much practical precision rifle oriented. I love to test and find out the actual data. You think about theory, that's cool, but I love to put it to the test. So if you like that, stick around, hit subscribe, and check out my other videos. I got a ton of new videos in the works, but right now I want to snag 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. That's a personal goal. I feel like we can get there, and I appreciate each and every one of you that have supported my channel so far. Now from here, let's move into the shooting. Next up, 100-yard line. First thing we're going to do is take a look at how each rifle and load perform at the 100-yard line. Now, there's a lot going on here on the cardboard, so let's chat through it. And then I'll also include maybe an Excel chart of the results that we're going to run through. So down here at the bottom, that's where I zeroed. So I zeroed initially at the 36-yard line using the IMI 77 grain. I wanted to run a 36-yard zero because I like how that performs out to, say, 300 yards. This dot right here is roughly where the Griffin was at, and this dot over here is where the Mk18 was at before I pushed out to the 100-yard line. Then we moved out to 100 yards, and we fired 5-round groups of each load through each rifle. Now first up will be the Griffin, where we fired along this center paper. The first group I fired were 5 rounds of the IMI, and you can see those 5 rounds are on the left dot here. Now that group initially I was a little bit disappointed. Overall, that's 3.75 inches, so almost 4 MOA for match ammunition. You'll see we have an average velocity of 24.37, a spread of 63, SD of 21, and a G7 BC of 0.181. Now for the distances we're going to shoot these rifles, extreme spreads in the 60s and SDs in the 20s will be just fine. We're shooting man-sized plates out to 6, maybe 800 yards depending on results. So first up, IMI 24.37, that's just traditional Mk262 in a brass case. Then I fired the Phantom Defense 77 grain load. I was really excited about this. Again, that's that hybrid case, higher pressure. And man, the results we're seeing are pretty awesome. 2550 feet per second average. So about 110 feet per second gain when you go to the Phantom Defense. Also, I noticed groups tightened up at 1.8 inches. So pretty solid accuracy for what that rifle is. Extreme spread of 49, SD of 19, G7 of 0.185. So extreme spread and SD are about equal. Then I swapped to the 69 grain TMK load from Phantom Defense, and I was pretty excited about this. This is the smallest group of the day right here at 1.25 inches. So it seems like the Griffin likes that 69 grain TMK load. I do too, actually. Look at this velocity. 2631, so this is going to be our highest speed of the day. Extreme spread of 58, SD of 22, and a G7 BC of 0.206. So we have the highest velocity and the highest BC. That's going to be a solid performer out to distance. Now you'll notice the Griffin across the board impacts are just a bit to the left. So I did adjust my point of impact right, something like 3/10, just to try to get this a little more centered up for when we shoot out to distance. Next up, I fired the Mk18, and we had some pretty wild results. So out of the gate, I fired the 69 grain load first, the TMK load from Phantom Defense, aiming at this dot. Now that load actually landed right up here, again a little bit high and left. Now it's normal for a 36-yard zero to land high at the 100-yard line, so this is not alarming. Again, a little bit left, so I did also correct this rifle to the right. And we'll talk about why here in just a second. But the 69 grain Phantom Defense load landed up here in this group. And as you can see, that group measured 2.3 inches, average speed of 2514, extreme spread of 38, SD of 13.5, and a G7 BC of 0.201. So pretty solid. I'm happy with that group, 2.3 inches. That'll perform well out to distance. Next, I fired the 77 grain Phantom Defense load. I was aiming here, and that group actually landed up here. Now this is going to be the best group out of the Mk18 at 1.75 inches. So pretty solid accuracy. It's going to be the tightest group out of the Mk18. And performance-wise, we're at an average speed of 24, extreme spread of 35, SD of 13.4, and a G7 BC of 0.183. So again, SD, extreme spread, that's in line with what we saw out of the Griffin. Again, a little bit left, which is why I bumped it to the right. And then the last group out of the day that I fired here at the 100-yard line was the IMI 77 grain load. Because if I would have aimed at this dot, I actually would have been on the very edge of the cardboard. I aimed at this little punch or hole punch here on the paper, and that group landed right here. Now this group, not that impressed actually. I think this was the first round that flew up, 4.5 inches overall. If you take that out, it's a little bit tighter, but felt like a good shot. Not really sure where it came from. 4.5 inches overall. Average speed of 23.34, extreme spread of 54, SD of 19, and 0.186 for the G7 BC. So again, in line with where the Griffin was at. Now a couple of things we can take a look at here. If we take a look at the accuracy between the rifles, let's take a look at the 77 grain Phantom Defense load, because I feel like it shot well out of both rifles. The 11.5 inch barrel, 1.8 inches. The 10.3 inch barrel, 1.75. So is there an accuracy advantage? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. My opinion, they look pretty equal to me. The 69 grain TMK load, it seems like the Griffin really liked that at 1.25 inches versus 2.3 out of the 10.3 inch. Now overall, we probably have larger groups on average out of the 10.3 than we do with the 11.5 Griffin, but let me know your thoughts on the accuracy. I feel like both barrel lengths are very capable of maybe combat or practical accuracy at the distances where we're going to shoot. Next up, let's take a look at the velocities, because I think this is really cool. So across the board, if you look at the 77 grain IMI, it's about roughly 100 feet per second different. So 24.37 versus 23.34 when you go from 11.5 to 10.3. Even the Phantom Defense at the higher velocity, you're going to be 25.50 versus 24.24, so a little over 100. The TMK 26.31 versus 25.14, a little over 100. So 1.25 inch barrel length is pretty significant velocity increase. That's across the board, that's to be expected. But check this out. This is something really cool that I like about this higher pressure Phantom Defense ammo in that hybrid case. So let's just take a look at 77 grain Mk262 out of the 10 or 11.5 inch barrel. Average speed of 24.37. That's pretty normal. That's what many of you are probably shooting. Now, if you do have that shorter barrel, check this out. You can throw in that Phantom Defense hybrid case load and get the same velocity with the same bullet. So Mk262 brass case, 11.5 inch, 24.37 versus Phantom Defense out of the 10.3 at 24.24. So that, what is that, 13 feet per second difference? That's almost nothing. We won't even really be able to notice that out at distance. So this will be kind of fun to keep an eye on. Those of you that are shooting maybe that standard brass case load, you can definitely pick up speed with the new hybrid loads from Phantom Defense. Or if you have a shorter barrel, you can maximize the performance and almost equal maybe what a standard load is out of a slightly longer barrel by bumping up to that hybrid case. So this is going to be pretty fun to stretch out to distance. I know this is a long conversation here at the 100-yard line, but there's a lot of data here that I want to talk through. So let me know in the comments down below, how do you think these different barrel lengths are going to perform out to distance with the different loads? From here, let's put up some steel and stretch them out. So I ran down and set up a full-size Zipstick and a 2/3 Zipstick, and I moved back to 420 yards. I thought it'd be fun just to set the tripod up and use it kind of as a hasty rest with the Mark 18 and the 77 grain IMI first. So let's put a handful of rounds on the full-size Zipstick, see if we can make hits. Maybe we try the 2/3 Zipstick next. I'm only going to shoot the 77 IMI here just to compare drop between the two barrel lengths. So according to my calculator, this is calling for 2.7 mils of elevation, and we have a little bit of a right to left, so I'm going to favor just right edge of plate to see if we can connect. So here we go. Impact. Off the right edge, or left edge. Impact. 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 So no problem there. Try the 2/3. Impact. The right edge. Impact. Off the left edge. So as you can see, 2.7 mils of drop seems to be about right, and windage definitely pushing to the left, but drop wise, I'm going to call it 2.7. Let's give the Griffin Mk2 11.5 inch a run here at the 420 yard line. I've got 10 rounds of IMI 77 grain loaded up, and we'll compare that to the 10.3 inch barrel. So we've got our hasty tripod position here. Pack. Quite a bit of wind. Pat. Let's try the 2/3. Pat. Left edge. Left edge. Impact. So I would say 2.3 mils of elevation looks pretty good with the IMI 77 grain here at 420. Let's push further. So 420 yards felt pretty easy. Now let's move back with the 650 yard line. I still have the Mark 18, and what I want to do here is compare the IMI 77 grain to the Phantom 77 grain. With that velocity difference, we should really start to see a difference in the drop. So with the IMI that I'll shoot first, it's calling for 7.4 mils of elevation, which I'll go ahead and dial on. There we go. And we have a bit of the right to left. So I'm just going to favor right edge. Okay, that landed off the left. Got 1.5. Let's go 2. Pat. 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 Low left. Pat. Let's try the 2/3. Impact. Low left. The left edge. Impact. So you can see 7.4 seems to be pretty solid with the IMI. Now let's try the Phantom. Now the Phantom Defense is calling for 6.2 mils, which I'll dial on. Something like that. And we'll start with the same wind call off the left edge. Pat. The left edge. Pat. Let's try the 2/3. The right edge. Right edge. Left edge. Impact. Let's drop a couple more of those in. Pat. Off the left edge. So as you can see, the IMI, 7.4 mils, the higher velocity of the Phantom Defense, 6.2 seems to be pretty solid. So velocity really matters in downrange performance. Now hit percent, it's hard for me to tell. I felt like I had no trouble really hitting the full-size IPSC with either round, and we made impacts on the 2/3 IPSC with both. Let me know in the comments which one you felt like shot better. Here we are with the Griffin Mk2 back at the 650-yard line. I've loaded up 10 rounds of the IMI 77 grain that we'll try here on the full-size IPSC and maybe the 2/3. The IMI is calling for 6.3 mils of elevation, which I will go ahead and dial on. And we'll hold something like well, let's just start right at 2 mils. Okay, so that dropped low left. Let's come up. Came up 0.5. Patch. Come up another 7. Let's try the 2/3. The right edge. Just off the bottom left. So it seems like we're in the ballpark of 7 mils. Now let's try the Phantom Defense. So there's the Phantom's loaded up. It's calling for 5.5, which I will dial on. Let's come up a half to 6. I think that was an impact. Let's try the 2/3. Just over it. So we're in the ballpark of like a 5.7, so definitely flatter shooting. Definitely made our impacts. Let's push out a little bit further. Here we are back at 820 yards with the Mark 18. Now let's try the 77 grain Phantom load versus the 69 grain TMK. It's calling for 10.7 mils of elevation, which I will dial on. And let's give it 3 mils of wind. Ooh. 4 mils. Let's come down 4/10. Actually just 3. 3.5. Dang. Back. Impact. Wow, that was kind of rough. Wind is kind of shifty out there. It seemed to be between 3 and 4 mils. We got, what, like 2 impacts? Let's try the 69 grain TMK. And that's calling for 8.8 mils of elevation. That was hard to see. Let's try one more. Let's go to 4. Okay, so that was low. I'm gonna call it about 6. So let's go up to 9.5 and over to 3. Impact. Left edge. Drop low. Let's come up 2 more. Pack. Pack. Impact. Man, pretty tough in the wind out there with this little short barrel. But we landed up at about 9.7 right there with the 69 TMK. Let's see how the Griffin fares. Here we are, 820 yards with the 11.5 inch Griffin Mk2. First up will be the 77 grain SMK from Phantom Defense. Now that's calling for 9.2 mils, which I'll go ahead and dial on. And we'll hold right. I'm thinking something like 3 mils. Wow, first round impact, huh? Just off that right edge. The right edge. Landed a bit high. So we got a first round impact. Impact. Let's come down a couple of tenths. Left edge. Impact. Impact. Off the right edge. So that's a pretty decent hit percent right there. Now let's try the 69 TMK. We made those impacts with the 77 at 9.1, 9.2 mils. 77, or the 69 is calling for 7.7. Here we go. Okay, so that landed low by about several tenths. Oh, operator error. Sorry guys, I dialed on 7.3. Now let's try it again. Actually, let's just go up to 8 because I think that should be about right. Here we go, 2 mils. And that was still way low. One more. Okay, so those are landing. I'm going to call it 1.5, so come up to 9.5. Back. 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 Impact. Wow, now that was a run. 11.5-inch barrel, 820 yards. Those 69 grainers are pretty consistent. That might have been the best run of the day. Remember, this is the most accurate load at the 100-yard line out of this rifle. Now that says I'm at 9.6 mils, so the data's the data. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up. Just like that, we're done shooting. Let's take a couple of minutes and wrap up. Now, while I chat through a summary of my experience, you gotta let me know in the comments down below, what did you see in this video that piqued your interest? Do you feel like one of the barrels outperformed the other? Do you feel like one might be a better fit for your needs? And if so, let me know down below. Also, what did you think about the performance of that Phantom Defense high pressure ammo? That stuff is pretty slick. I think we saw some really cool improvements. And like I said earlier in the video, I think that's the future. So 100-yard line, we saw some really cool data. Now there's a lot to talk about here, and I'll try to summarize it quickly. What I saw out of the 11.5-inch rifle is pretty solid performance. The IMI group was a bit large for what I expected, but the Phantom Defense, it was in the range of 1.8 inches with a 77 grain, and the 69 was like 1.25. So great accuracy out of this rifle using the high pressure ammo. It's really interesting to see how the high pressure ammo actually improved the grouping capability. Velocity wise, we saw very normal, say from the 2400 to the 2600 range, depending on which ammo I was shooting. But what I saw there at the 100-yard line, really with both of these rifles, is the high pressure ammo seemed to run, on average, about 100 feet per second faster, regardless of which barrel length was in it. We also saw the 11.5-inch barrel with the same ammo running about 100 feet per second faster than the 10.3-inch. The Mk18, as far as accuracy is concerned, I feel like not quite as good as the 11.5, maybe not that far off of it, but the IMI 77 grain load was like 4 inches. That was pretty large with that one flyer. But then the Phantom Defense 77 was in the 1.75 inch range. And the 69 TMK was like 2 or a little over 2. So when you think about practical precision and the ability to hit, say, a torso type target out at distance, that'll get the job done, and we saw that in the video. Again, this rifle's running about 100 feet per second slower. Now, really interesting, because the theory that I said in the early part of the video is I feel like we could take the high pressure load, say 77 grain, out of the 10.3 inch and come very close to the performance of the 11.5 inch. And I feel like we saw that. Now, in terms of velocity, I want to say this one was running like 24, if I remember correctly, with the high pressure 77 grain. This, with the standard Mk262, was like 24.37. So remember that delta, what we've always known as the standard Mk262, that high pressure is getting there. Now certainly if you put high pressure in both rifles, the advantage will still go to the longer barrel, but those of you that have 10.3 inch barrels, the new high pressure offerings, especially these from Phantom Defense, could be a way to improve your performance. Now on steel, I feel like we saw great performance out of both rifles, given what they are. Now LPVOs, they're not the easiest thing to shoot out to distance, but as you saw, we made plenty of hits. At the 420-yard line, really had no problems with either rifle connecting on the full-size Zipzik, or really even the 2/3 Zipzik. Now wind was tricky out here today, so that was some of my trouble, but we saw a drop advantage to the 11.5 inch barrel shooting the same Mk262 of about 0.4 mils, 2.7 versus 2.3. So as expected, that rifle was flatter. Now you think about 0.4 mils, that's just over a minute, and a minute at 400 yards is about 4 inches. So this one was about, say, probably 5 inches flatter than the shorter barrel. Move back here to 650, and what we saw is, certainly, the difference was there between barrel lengths when shooting the same ammo. Both rifles seem to have about a 0.5 mil improvement when you went to the high pressure ammo. So for example, I can't remember the numbers exactly because there's a lot of them out here today, but I want to say this 11.5-inch barrel was shooting something like 5.6, 5.7 at 650 with the high pressure 77 versus the standard Mk262 was something like 6.2, 6.3. Now you think about the comment I made earlier. Can you take the high pressure ammo and match the performance of the longer barrel with the standard ammo? We saw that in the velocity, so yes, it could be done velocity-wise. Now the data also agrees. So the high pressure 77 grain out of the 10.3-inch barrel actually was a bit flatter than the standard Mk262 out of the 11.5-inch barrel. So I know I'm harping on this, but I feel like this is kind of the cool comparison. So certainly, yep, barrel length does matter. Both of them were very capable of making impacts here at 650 yards on a man-sized target. But again, that shorter barrel, you really can improve the performance by going to something like the higher pressure ammo. And then back there at 820 yards, that was just super cool to be able to shoot both rifles. I don't know, let me know in the comments down below what you thought. I feel like hit percent was higher on the 11.5-inch, certainly with that 69 grain TMK load. That 69 TMK, once I got it dialed in on this 11.5-inch, I think we went 5 or 6 in a row at 820 yards. We made impacts with the 77s as well, but that really was the star of the show. Again, that was the tightest group at 100 yards, and I feel like that was maybe our best performer at 820 was the 69 TMK out of the 11.5-inch barrel. The 10.3 was no slouch. We connected a handful of times, but wind was tricky with that one, and we were really running out of steam out there at distance. So with that, let me know what you thought about the comparison. What stuck out to you? Which one do you feel like might be better? Do you have a 10.3-inch barrel that you want to try to improve performance, say with the Phantom Defense load? I'd love to hear it. Now, other things I'm sure you're curious about with the high pressure ammo. What did the back of the brass look like, or the cases? And I'll show a picture. Primers were in it. Primers didn't seem overly flat, and they weren't pierced. So it appears to be a safe load. Also, ejection-wise, both of these rifles seem to send brass out at the 1 to 2 o'clock position. They're both probably on the high end of gassing with cans. I'm not terribly worried about it so long as they work. And it did seem like the high pressure ammo did push a little bit further, maybe toward that 1 o'clock, so maybe a little bit more gas in the system, but that's to be expected. Both rifles seem to run both ammo just fine. I've always had a little bit of trouble. I'm not sure where it's at. My straight Magpul PMag's always given some trouble in really any of my ARs when running them suppressed. So some of the time there, you might have seen me not lock back on empty. That is very normal for that magazine out of multiple different rifles. Swap to a different mag and that fixes it. So as far as cycling, both ammo ran fine and both types were able to make impacts out at distance. So I had a ton of fun making this. If you enjoyed watching it, let me know in the comments down below what you thought. Now finally, if you want to help me out, it's super simple. Check out my other content, subscribe to the channel, like the video. That's something I'm really excited about. I have a ton of partner companies. There's many companies that have stepped up to support me, and I need their help to keep pumping out this content. So if you find yourself in the market for any of the gear that I feature here on the channel, go ahead and navigate to the link down in the description below. It's a campsite bio, so it's essentially a place where I house links to all of the different companies, as well as codes that are specific to me for the companies where that applies. So if you find yourself interested in any of the gear you find in my videos, make sure to navigate through the link in the description below to the company that you're looking for. Again, I couldn't do it without the support of the industry companies that have backed me. I couldn't do it without you. So if you've enjoyed it, let me know. I hope you'll stay around to check out my next videos. Thank you.